Look at this room, beautiful people. Such an honor to be here, to welcome you all to the 7th annual Startup Health Festival. I thought I would start today by reading a poem from Startup Health. This is our dream. It's titled, "The Health Moonshot Vision." Oops. Health transformers of the world unite. With the right mindset, a moonshot vision, and the spirit of an entrepreneur, anything is possible. Anything is possible. Something magical happens when people with passion and purpose collaborate to achieve extraordinary goals. Why shouldn't everyone have access to quality care? We must strive to end cancer and cure disease. Let's prioritize women's health and children's health around the world. How do we bring the cost to zero? Yes, zero. Health isn't a cost, it's an investment in you and me and we, you see? Surely it's time to realign mind, body, and spirit. Oh, and what happens when we rethink healthy food, water, nutrition, and fitness as a human right? Imagine, imagine, imagine. When we unlock the mysteries of the brain to live healthier, happier, longer. This is why moonshot thinking matters. Together, we will achieve the impossible. Together, we will improve the health and well-being of everyone in the world. So this is our vision. This is our 25-year plan. As you will hear in a few minutes, when my partner Stephen Krein comes to the stage, Startup Health is not an event. Jerry, it's our clarion call. The Startup Health Festival is 2 days packed with inspiration, community, and possibility. So here's what you can expect over the next 48 hours. There's 3 floors of action. So this is the main stage where you'll see almost 150 presentations over the next 2 days. The top floor, there's a networking floor. I hope you all get a chance to make your way up there. Downstairs, there's a cafe, so you don't have to leave if it starts raining again. There's food and coffee. We have more than 2,500 health innovators and leaders that are going to be coming through here over the next 2 days. 2,500 people. We had 2,000 last year. So it's going to get cozy. It's going to get crowded. So thank you all for being here first. You'll get a seat. These people have come from 30 countries. We have people that have flown from 30 countries to be here. What I'm excited about, we've got 240 of our health transformers from 145 startup health companies from around the world here today. There's going to be more than 500 investors. And over the next 2 days, you'll see presentations from more than 90 startup health companies presenting their health moonshot stories, and 12 startup health companies presenting their health transformer spotlights. We also have 20 keynote fireside chats, 20 keynote fireside chats. And we're really honored that later today, Dr. Jill Biden, the co-chair of the Biden Cancer Initiative, will be joining us here for a keynote conversation. Tomorrow, we've got Dr. Sanjay Gupta, the medical director of CNN. And we're going to be making a very special announcement about a new moonshot that we're announcing and details around the addiction moonshot to help end the opioid crisis. This is an urgent moonshot, something that we care deeply about, and we're going to be focusing on a lot. We'll be talking about that tomorrow. In a few minutes, joining our stage, one of America's great CEOs, Bernard Tyson, the CEO of Kaiser Permanente. Our good friend, Dr. Toby Cosgrove from Cleveland Clinic and now Google, will be joining us tomorrow morning. Our personal Yoda, Esther Dyson, who I think is already here, Startup Health's very first investor, is going to be joining us on stage tomorrow. She'll be here all day today as well. One of our newest partners, Novartis, is going to be joining us on stage. Bertrand Bodson, the new Chief Digital Officer from Novartis. Excited to have him. Two of our great friends, the Park brothers, Ed Park, Todd Park, who we've known from the inception of Startup Health, are going to be joining us to tell us about their new company, Devoted Health, which is one of our most recent investments at Startup Health. So many more amazing keynotes and fireside chats. You can learn about all of them on Startup Health HQ or startuphealth.com. So you can figure out when they're speaking. There's too many to go through. Hot off the presses, hopefully you all got your Startup Health magazine. This is the 3rd issue. We choose to go to the moon. It's the Health Moonshot issue. Many, if not all, of the companies and people that you'll be meeting on stage are featured in this issue. It's our 3rd issue. You can sign up for a free subscription at startuphealth.com/magazine. Very, very proud of this, sharing the stories. Later today at 5 o'clock, for the 3rd year in a row, we have the Accenture Health Tech Innovation Challenge. The finalists who have been from all over the world are going to be presenting later today, starting at 5 on this very stage. Tomorrow, we're honored to present with Oliver Wyman, the Oliver Wyman Women in Healthcare Leadership Award. And the Startup Health Festival is 2 days, but it's really meant to carry on 365 days a year. We recently launched something called Startup Health HQ. It's a free online app so that you can connect with everybody here, everybody within the Startup Health network. You can get access to all of our data, all of our insights at the Startup Health HQ. It's free on the App Store. It's free on Google. So hopefully everybody signs up for that. And if that's not enough, tomorrow night, we're going to have a huge celebration here, co-hosted with Oliver Wyman and Red Crow, the crowdfunding platform. It's one of the talking heads, Jerry Harrison, and his band. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So hopefully everybody can come and enjoy that. It's going to be great. So let's just... So the Startup Health Festival is much more than the next 2 days. This is really a moment about laying the foundation for something much bigger over the next few decades. It's about supporting the entrepreneurs and innovators dedicating their lives to cracking the code on improving global health. It's about health transformers achieving their health moonshots. Today is about making the commitment to choose to go to the moon again together. So in a minute, my business partner, my friend, my brother-in-arms for more than 20 years, Stephen Krein, the CEO and co-founder of Startup Health, is going to be sharing a very important plan with all of you. But before we do that, I want to officially kick off the Startup Health Festival and share with you a 90-second clip of Startup Health's moonshots.
Good morning to not only everybody in this room, sitting and standing, but everybody that's watching on the live stream. I am thrilled to be here for our 7th annual Startup Health Festival. And what I wanted to try to do over the next couple of minutes is tell you a little bit about our obsession. And it's our obsession with this word moonshot, and in particular, the idea that we were going to, in 1962, commit to something really impactful. The idea that we were, as a nation, ultimately what ended up being the world, commit to landing a man on the moon. And a lot of people talk about moonshots. I think what's interesting is that several years ago when we started using the moonshot language and in fact launched our 10 health moonshots, it became clear by a lot of people that moonshot thinking was an important ingredient in achieving a health moonshot. But what we've discovered through this new obsession of ours over the last 7 years is that moonshot thinking's not enough. And if you actually look back and dissect everything that took place, not only leading up to 1962, but all the way through to 1969, and even since 1969, how unique a set of ingredients existed all at the same time. All, interestingly enough, very easy to discern, and also easy to see why we haven't been back to the moon, and why people oftentimes find it really hard to achieve moonshots. And so what I wanted to share with you today is our latest thinking about really the recipe for going to the moon. And in particular, why not only our latest issue of Startup Health magazine and this festival are dedicated to this idea of we choose to go to the moon, but I want to explain why we choose to go to the moon, why it's such an important element for us to study, not only as entrepreneurs, investors, but also as patients, as family members, as caregivers. And this idea that if you want to really bring hope to 7.5 billion people, everyone on the planet, and improve the health and well-being of everyone in the world, it is possible. But it's not going to happen by happenstance. It's not going to happen with crossing our fingers, and it's absolutely not going to happen if we don't do it in a coordinated, collaborative way. And so we've outlined now 8 moonshots, 8 steps to the moonshot. We call it the 8 steps to the moon. And these 8 steps to the moon are a metaphor for us, and the idea of even going to the moon is a great metaphor. But what's really interesting, if you look at them, they conveniently, and I don't know how it happened, they all start with the letter C. It's crazy, but C's become my new favorite letter in the alphabet. The first C is commitment. The next C is communication, early and often. The next C is capabilities and collaboration. And if you bring together commitment and you communicate early and often, and you do it with the capabilities and look for others with capabilities to collaborate with you, then you can have a community of people who are committed with conviction to achieving things they didn't even realize was possible. In fact, over the next 2 days, a lot of what you're going to see are these C's in action. So as you see each C, and you think about this one, continuity, what you're going to find is that continuity plays the most critical role in achieving a health moonshot, staying the course, actually being able to leverage all of the other C's so that the confidence and your conviction and your certainty is going to bring together everything you need, everything we need to achieve the health moonshot. And then the last C, capital. And it is the last C on purpose because it's the result of all of the other C's. And if you actually can articulate your plan, our plan, to achieve these health moonshots together, you're going to see how this plays out. I'm going to tell you a little story, and I'm going to use actually a little bit of history to tell it because these steps are the blueprint. These steps allow us to clearly walk through why in 1969 Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. And he did it despite so many things getting in the way between 1962 and 1969. But this is one of my favorite commitments. In 2011, Unity and I had a chance to launch Startup Health in the Oval Office at the White House with President Obama and Vice President Biden explaining our commitment to improve the health and well-being of everyone in the world and bring hope to 7.5 billion people. And I'm sure they patted us on the back and smiled for this photo, thinking, yeah, 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 another commitment, another bunch of entrepreneurs that want to do something really magical. But this commitment means something because of all of the other C's that I'm going to explain to you today. So this commitment, just like the commitment to land on a man on the moon, is such a critical step, but what you're going to see is that commitment alone is not enough. And so I want to take a little step back to 1962 to remind you of the precise words that were spoken by JFK at Rice University.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
So, JFK's speech, what's really interesting about it is that, yes, 40,000 people were in the audience that day, but it was actually one of the first times that television, a modern media invention, was now allowing people, not only all over the country, but all over the world, to see this commitment publicly. And what's really fascinating, if you study the 1960s, and if you were alive and actually aware of what was going on in the 60s, you know that the milestones that everybody were working towards, the idea that we were rallying towards this moonshot, was being very publicly communicated on a regular basis, just like this festival is part of every year, just like our magazine every quarter, just like our newsletter every week. The idea of continually communicating your commitment becomes an important ingredient in succeeding at landing a man on the moon, but not without the capabilities. And so the third C is about capabilities, unique abilities, if you will, like NASA's mission control, to coordinate all of the efforts, which I'm going to talk about with the fourth C, that would take to bring a man to the moon. The idea that your unique abilities, that our unique abilities, are really wonderful ingredients, but they are not going to happen. They are not going to allow you alone to bring a man to the moon. You actually need to collaborate. And so one of the things that we became fascinated with is that while Neil Armstrong is the symbol of having a man land on the moon, 400,000 people, 400,000 individuals participated from 1962 to 1969 to land a man on the moon. And this is actually what 400,000 people look like. And these are not the people that helped necessarily land a man on the moon, but for those of you who might recognize this historic snapshot of another festival, not the Startup Health Festival yet, but Woodstock. Woodstock symbolizes what 400,000 people collaborating look like. And what's really interesting is that 20,000 companies and universities collaborated together. And not the kind of just space companies you'd think of. Playtex, a bra company, made the spacesuits, and Whirlpool and Westinghouse and IBM and GM, everybody participating, tire companies, seamstresses, designers, every human who was interested in joining the achievement of landing a man on the moon were part of this collaboration, which is why it's not a crazy idea, if you think about it, that we need an army of entrepreneurs, an army of investors and customers and partners and people who believe that landing on the moon is possible again. And this idea that it's not a community that's just in this room. In fact, it's not a community just in this country. It's somebody from every part and every corner of this planet. The idea that we're a global community. What's really fascinating is that in 1969, there were about 200 million people in America, yet 750 million people watched the man land on the moon. Everybody was rooting for it and rallying for it. And not everybody believed, but everybody tuned in. And what's really amazing is that whether you were part of a group of people in the United States or you were sitting on the streets in Italy, you were part of the moonshot. It wasn't about the nation. It was about mankind. And that is why health moonshots are such an important thing for us to all rally around. And so the next C, continuity, plays such an important role for this community to succeed. And we wanted to demonstrate how continuity looks, and we thought that this festival and our annual trek as a community to San Francisco each week would serve as our continuity of our moonshots, of our commitment from the White House, that we were going to return every year with a growing army of people that believed that landing on the moon or achieving health moonshots were possible. This is 2012, and believe it or not, this is the Startup Health Festival year 1. But what really is interesting is that it was really just me and Unity in Union Square having meetings. And we were having meetings with, well, I say, anybody that would listen, investors, entrepreneurs, and others, trying to begin to assemble the kind of people that had the mindset to achieve health moonshots. And we were sitting in the sunny skies. It was sunny back then, hasn't been for many years here, sitting in the skies, sitting in the Union Square talking about, wouldn't it be great if we could use this week as a symbol of our commitment, and each year bring a larger and larger community back. And so the following year, this was Startup Health Festival year 2, a conference room at the Hilton. And these were all of our health transformers, and we had investors coming in one by one to meet our entrepreneurs. And the festival, in its original form, was always about the 25-year commitment. We knew this was just going to be the beginning. So the next year, we took over, boldly, a 2-hour chunk, it's all we could afford, of half a ballroom at the Four Seasons to host our first showcase where we could now invite a lot more people to participate in the festival. The next year we came back, but we needed double the size ballroom. So we knew the army was growing, the interest was growing, the kind of people who are attracted to achieving health moonshots. But then we realized, quickly outgrowing that, we needed 2 days, not 2 hours. And so we moved over to a cafe on Montgomery Street. How many of you were here for the cafe at Montgomery Street, right? We had 2 days inside a cafe networking and hosting the first visit with Vice President Biden. And we realized that now connecting back to that day in the White House with President Obama and Vice President Biden was really not only working, but it was attracting more and more people. And we knew that we were not going to be able to keep the festival at that cafe, so the continuity led us to this venue. And this venue is really what shows how commitment and each one of the C's plays into building the confidence that we're going to do this together. And what does confidence look like? Confidence looks like, in 1903, the Wright brothers confidently getting in the plane for the first controlled flight. Or 30 years later, hard to believe, that Amelia Earhart took her first transatlantic flight, the first transatlantic flight. And the confidence that we would, yes, land on the moon.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Confidence. Confidence might be the most underestimated of all the C's, because confidence plays a role in attracting everything we need. The team members, the investors, the people to believe that it's possible. Confidence, the mindset of confidence, is such an important ingredient. And with certainty and with conviction that we're going to achieve these health moonshots is never a question. And it starts with each one of the individuals in this room. It starts with every individual working on a moonshot. And it allows us to actually then ask for the capital. Ask for the capital by showing each one of these C's playing a role. And for us at Startup Health, these 8 steps become a really critical part of explaining how we are at this unique moment in time. And if we really want to bring access to care to everyone in the world, if we want to really bring the cost to zero and end disease and end cancer as we know it, if we want to end the opioid crisis. We can't do it by hoping someone else is doing it. In fact, the craziest thing that I've come to realize over the last 8 years is that no one is in charge of any of these moonshots. No one is in charge. So think about the idea that we're hoping someone's working to end cancer. Someone is working to bring access to care. But if you think about these 8 C's and how they work together, and we break them down into these 8 steps, we can see that collectively, as an army, a global army of individuals and organizations and people committed, we can do this. And so my last C, capital, I wanted to find something that symbolized how much we need to break this down into small bite-sized chunks. And I thought a very often, very rarely seen part of the Rice speech that JFK made would help bring that to life.
Base expenditures will soon rise some more, from 40 cents per person per week to more than 50 cents a week for every man, woman, and child in the United States. For we have given this program a high national priority, even though I realize that this is, in some measure, an act of faith and vision, for we do not now know what benefits await us.
So, if you pay attention to those words, he broke it down in very simple terms everybody could understand. In order for us to do something like land a man on the moon, which they didn't even know what would actually help them, other than the idea of achieving it, what would be the result afterwards, they said that 50 cents a week for every man, woman, and child in America. And what's fascinating is 50 cents a week in like 1962 is equivalent to about $4 today. And so we took a look at the funding that's taken place over the last 8 years in digital health, health innovation. And what I started to think about was fascinating. The idea that we 14 times the amount of annual money being invested from $1 billion to over 14 billion last year, it's not even close to enough. In fact, if you use the idea or the metaphor of JFK breaking it down to 50 cents a person per week in America, and you think about, for these moonshots, we're trying to affect everyone in the world, 7.5 billion people, it's like 4 cents a week. 4 cents a week invested in health innovation. I was very excited to see the slope up, but we need to 14x this again. We need to see hundreds of billions of dollars, a fraction of the amount of money being spent to take care of everybody after they're sick, after they've already been diagnosed. We have a chance to do something that JFK did in 1962 by announcing publicly this commitment. And the community and everybody that rallied around in the subsequent years, despite the fact that JFK was assassinated a few years later, despite the fact of the Apollo tragedy, the idea that together we can bring hope to 7.5 billion people, together we can improve the health and well-being of everyone in the world, is not lip service. The idea that together we can is so important, and it's not just a hashtag. It's actually what is sitting around this room, what is watching on this live stream. So as a way to show you what Together We Can is, and if you've ever been to a startup health festival, you'll know this exercise. I'm going to ask everyone to please stand up out of your seats for just a moment. Stand up. Everybody stand up. I know there's a lot of people already standing. And I want everyone to link arms with the person to your left and to your right. All right, so is everybody linked arm in arm? Now, if you're in a row and you're not linked with the row behind you or in front of you, I want you to link arms too. So rows linked together as well. Nobody should be unhooked here. So did you feel the energy shift right away? Right? I see smiles on everyone's faces. We're linked arm in arm. This is a symbol of what Together We Can, the hashtag, feels like. This is what it's going to take. Just like the 400 individuals and the 20,000 companies and private universities that help land a man on the moon means that we can achieve these health moonshots. We're committed to doing them. We're going to communicate not only every year here at the Startup Health Festival, but every day, every week, every quarter, every year. We're going to bring all of our capabilities together, and we're going to collaborate. This will not happen with one individual company. We are going to collaborate so that the continuity that's needed, the continuity that's promised, the continuity that is going to need to be summoned from within is going to allow us with confidence, with the capital, to achieve these health moonshots. I want to make sure that every one of you remembers this link arm in arm. Remembers it. Remember it when you're feeling defeated. Remember it when you're rolling your eyes. Remember it when people roll their eyes at you, that we will land a man back on the moon as a community, and it's going to affect every man, woman, and child on this planet. Thank you. Let's have a great festival.